There's a habit almost every poor person has. It isn't laziness. It isn't bad luck. And it's so quiet, so ordinary, that most people who have it never notice they do. The wealthy don't talk about it, not because they're hiding it. To them, it stopped being a decision a long time ago. It just became how they think, the way breathing becomes automatic long after you stop noticing you're doing it. Tonight, we open the ledger on 5 habits that quietly keep people poor. The habits that never show up on a bank statement, but decide what that statement will say 5 years from now. And the one shift, at the end, that closes the gap for good. None of these 5 will sound dramatic. That's precisely the point. Nothing that quietly determines a financial life across decades was ever going to announce itself loudly enough to be noticed in the moment it was happening. Habit number 1. They talk about money like it's weather. If things turn around, when I catch a break, if the market's kind to me this year. Listen to the language. It's the language of a passenger, not a driver. Picture 2 people losing the same job in the same week. One says, "Of course this happened to me. It always does." The other says, "All right, what does this force me to figure out?" Same event, same shock, same fear at 2 a.m. Completely different relationship to what happens next. One is narrating something happening to them. The other is already looking for the lever, even while still upset about losing the job in the first place. A person who believes money happens to them will always be waiting for the next forecast. A person who believes money is directed stops checking the sky and starts building shelter, whether or not the weather ever improves. This isn't about positive thinking. It's about grammar. The words you use about your own life are either the words of someone steering or someone along for the ride. And the ride only ever goes where the driver decides, never where the passenger wishes it would. Habit number 2. They confuse motion with progress. There is a specific kind of busy that feels like effort, but produces nothing. Answering messages, rearranging tasks, reading about the plan instead of executing it. Researching the perfect approach for the 11th day in a row, instead of starting with the approach they already have sitting in front of them. Here's the tell. At the end of a day spent this way, you're tired, but you couldn't say what actually moved forward. That tiredness is real. It's just not evidence of progress. It's evidence of motion, and the two get confused constantly because both feel identical from the inside by 6 in the evening. The wealthy-minded don't optimize for looking hardworking. They optimize for the handful of decisions that actually compound. And they're often shockingly idle everywhere else because they've already decided which 5 things matter and let the rest go undone without guilt, even when it looks, from the outside, like they're doing less than everyone around them. Ask yourself, honestly, of everything on your plate today, how much of it will matter in 5 years? For most people, the answer is almost none of it. And that's not a failure of effort. It's a failure of aim. Effort pointed at the wrong target still burns just as much fuel. The uncomfortable test is running that question at the end of an average week, not a bad one. A bad week has an obvious excuse. An average week doesn't. And an average week is what most weeks actually are. Habit number 3. And this is the one nobody wants to admit. They avoid deciding, because not deciding feels safer than deciding wrong. Indecision feels like caution. It isn't. Caution weighs the options and picks one. Indecision just delays the weighing, indefinitely, and calls the delay being careful, sometimes for years at a time. Think of the person who's still thinking about the same business idea for 3 years, gathering more information every year, feeling more responsible for having done so, while someone else launched a worse version of the same idea in month 1, got it wrong twice, adjusted twice, and is now on their 3rd attempt with real data instead of hypothetical fear. The first person has more research. The second person has more reality. Here's what almost nobody tells you. A mediocre decision made today will outperform a perfect decision made in 6 months, nearly every time. Compounding doesn't wait for your certainty. It only responds to your motion, and it starts the clock the moment you move, not the moment you're finally sure. The wealthy make plenty of wrong calls, more of them, in fact, than most people ever will. What separates them isn't better decisions. It's more decisions, made faster, corrected in motion instead of debated in stillness. Habit number 4. They talk about money constantly, but never study it. Complaining about money and learning about money feel similar from the inside. Both involve thinking about it a lot. But one produces relief, briefly, and the other produces leverage, permanently. And the two get mistaken for each other because they occupy the same amount of headspace. Notice how much airtime money gets in an average conversation, and how little of that airtime is actually about how money works. Interest, leverage, risk, time. Most people can debate the price of eggs for 20 minutes and couldn't explain compound interest in 2, not because they're incapable of understanding it, but because complaining feels like participation, and studying feels like homework nobody assigned them. The habit isn't a lack of intelligence, it's a substitution. Venting stands in for learning, and it's a substitution nobody notices they're making, because venting feels productive in the moment it happens, even though it changes nothing by the moment it ends. Habit number 5. They wait to feel ready before they act. This is the quietest one, and the most expensive. Readiness is not a feeling. It is a decision you make before the feeling arrives. Because the feeling, for almost everyone, never fully arrives at all. Consider how many people you know who are getting ready to get ready, updating a resume that's already good enough, saving for a cushion that keeps needing to be bigger every time it's finally reached, waiting for a sign that will never look unambiguous enough to act on. The wait itself starts to feel like productivity, when it's actually the opposite, a very sophisticated way of staying still while feeling like you're moving. The wealthy-minded aren't the ones who felt ready first. They're the ones who stopped waiting for the feeling and treated the doubt as background noise instead of a red light, every single time, until doing it that way simply became the default. None of these 5 habits are about money itself. They're about direction, attention, decision, study, and timing. 5 defaults, running quietly in the background of a life, none of them ever named out loud. Which means the gap between poor and wealthy was never really about the money sitting in the account on any given day. It was about which of these 5 defaults someone has been running, unexamined, for years. Because a default you've never named will keep running exactly the same way indefinitely. And a default you finally see clearly stops being automatic the moment you see it. That's a genuinely different kind of problem than most people think they're solving when they try to fix their finances. It was rarely a math problem to begin with. It was a pattern recognition problem, and pattern recognition only requires honest attention, not additional income. You cannot fix a habit you haven't named. That's the whole rule, and it's simpler than anything else in this video. So tonight, before you close this, pick one. Just one of the 5. Not to fix it tonight. Not to overhaul your entire life by tomorrow morning. Just to notice it, honestly, the next time it shows up in an ordinary moment, where nobody's watching and nothing much is at stake. Notice it without immediately trying to correct it. The noticing itself is the entire first step, and most people skip straight past it, reaching for a fix before they've even confirmed what they're actually fixing. That's how the ledger gets rewritten, not in one dramatic entry, one entry at a time.